Okay, guys, so what I did was I spent a little bit of time. I'll come through this. I'm just going to let this out for you guys. You guys are also going to get um, some of these terrains as part of the download package, so I'm not going to spend a bunch of time kind of going through everything and explaining what's what. But basically, I went through and I made a. Let's come back into here and look at this guy. Essentially, kind of more of a mountainy standard kind of shape that I think some of you guys are probably a little bit more interested in. The real point of this is for us to go in and take a look at triplanar texturing. And what is triplanar texture? Well, it's basically the process. If you think of these from several different views, you got your front there, or your left, your right, and your top. It's essentially mapping from those angles. Okay. Now, video game engines do this really well. Unreal has actually a triplanar shader like node in there. But for us Max guys, we have to call on the power of Neil Blevins, who again is our kind of our Max guru. And if you go to neilblevins.com, he will explain to you kind of what's going down with this process. This is based off of Neil's process entirely. In fact, we're actually going to use his blended box mapping tools to generate, to help texture this terrain. So I'm going to get this thing out of World Machine, and we'll throw it into Max. Just some caveats, just so you guys note. At the beginning of this, you saw this red and blue guy. Actually, let me save this so it doesn't crash out on me. This is generated using something called a splat map. These are actually really useful. RGB, you have your red, green, and blue channels. So you pretty much have your selection maps already set up. So I'll show you really quick how I did that. Again, you guys will have this so you can go in and actually look at this. But basically what the splat map does, see if I can move this because it's going to get a little hairy to see. It's taking inputs from several different devices. I have an output from my sharpen mask here. I have the flow map from the erosion, and oh yeah, I have a select slope in here, so I can actually go in and grab these lower lying blue areas, which are also really useful to have. And again, that slope select is really useful for doing that because I can say, hey, everything within this range, I want to grab it. After we have that, we need to output it because, again, like most things, it doesn't do us any good just sitting inside a World Machine. So let's set that up as well. We'll do the output. Bitmap. There we go. Drop that there. And let me see here. I don't need an alpha input. That's fine. Specify output. Channel map. Right disk. Yep. Okay. And again, the same thing's going to need to be done with the height field as well, so we can get the actual mesh output. Or do we want the bitmap? Let's do both. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to grab the height output. Hell with it. We'll just set it up inside of Max. Okay. And we'll do this. Oops, sorry. I want a TIFF 16-bit. Let's make sure we set this. Channel. Mountain H map. Alright, do 16 bits so we get that floating point info. We'll write that out to the disk here. Yeah, thank you. Okay. And let's hop inside of 3ds Max. Okay. And I'm going to do this. We're going to try and do as much of this in the viewport as we can, because once we get some of the shader stuff going, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to do that. We're going to have to do a lot of quick renders and that kind of thing. So, displace this guy. And let's just do a straight tessellation. Turn that tension down. We might need to increase it a little bit, but we'll see. And we're going to just grab our height map. Cool. And we're going to push this guy right on up. Again, for this, I'm not going to make this thing insanely dense. I mean, we can, if we're really concerned about it, I can paste that guy back down. Then this is actually going to be insanely dense. I should have done that. I don't know why I did that. I don't even see through the mesh. Okay, so sorry about that. It crashed, obviously. Some things just to talk about real quick. When you're tessellating this, you can use triangles. Triangles is actually going to give you better displacement. It's going to be more contouring than just a straight quad displacement will give you. I know some of you guys are like, "What? You should only use quads." No, that's not accurate. Anyway, we don't need to get into that for right now. But I want to show you guys. So let's talk a little bit about the UV mapping here. I'm just gonna. Oh, V-Ray, I love you. So again, World Machine is going to do these projections Z down or Y down or Y up or Z up, however you want to say it. It's basically a straight planar map. And this is going to be a good way to show this off. So I'm going to set this up to maybe like 8. Throw that on there. We're going to look at this guy. Okay. And again, the mapping is fine. From the top-down perspective, right? So for our gradient maps and that kind of stuff, this is totally valid, totally works. But really what most of us want, 9 times out of 10, is something... And we'll rotate it so it actually makes some kind of logical sense. Something like this, right? Which, this is all fine and dandy, but the second we go to the side, we start to get a bunch of shearing, and from the top down, it's just as big of a mess. So, what triplanar mapping is going to do, essentially, is we're going to take a camera, or we're going to actually use box projections for this. There's also a camera mapping method which works really well for you map painters out there. But what we're basically going to do is it's going to take a projection from, say, the left, the front, and from the top, it's going to project across. And Neil's workflow has it using fall-off maps, which is really useful to get this thing to work. So let's look at that. And again, this is going to be using the Soulburn script from Neil Blevins. So let me pull that up really quick over here. Soulburn. All my death metal stuff's popping up. That's awesome. It can be found right here, and if you're a Max guy and you don't have these installed, you should. You know, they are, I mean, I've been using this stuff since I was probably in high school. This stuff goes way far back, some of his tools, so it's pretty rad, maybe even before then. Yeah, '09, so early college stuff. This is back with 3D Studio Max 8, good lord. But yeah, some really useful tools. And again, it's neilblevins.com. Neil also has a bunch of really good tutorials you should check out as well. But, you know, Neil not only is a super talented painter, but he is an insanely good scripter. So for these kind of really interesting problems, he makes some really awesome things. So what we're going to go through and do is we're going to do the blended box maker, okay? And we're gonna, I have this mapped. If I come under customize user interface, maybe I come under quads, and if you follow his installation for Windows, for current versions of Windows, it's kind of a pain in the ass, and that's really because of Microsoft's love of permissions. But if you come under Soulburn scripts, the thing that you're looking for is these guys right here. There's a couple of them. There's blended box maker. And blended cube map projection. All do similar things. Some of them, one of them requires, I think it's a Gemini plugin, and he explains it on his site. But anyway, what we're going to go through and do is I'm going to select this map. We're in downloads, and here it is. Or there it was. There it is. Okay. And this obviously isn't the right rock type for this kind of rock, but whatever, it's fine. What this is going to go through and do, and actually let me, I wonder if it's going to create a problem because of, yeah, we'll find out. Basically what it's going to do is it's going to create a mix map, and it's going to make some new channel maps for everything, and it's going to basically stick this box, this projection, off of one of these planar maps, and we'll just go ahead and see that. We'll adjust the tiling and that kind of stuff inside the shader. So I'm just going to hit do. Yep, just hit OK. You see it there, it's running and it's doing its thing. Okay, and not a whole lot changed, right? Okay, so let's actually look and see what happened. We have this now. Okay, this is a new node inside of Max. This is our mix map. Copy this guy. I want you to take a shader, any shader, drop him on there. And if you notice, if you hit this, Max will kind of give you, kind of not give you what you're looking for. It's going to display only one of the channels. So first things first, what I like to do is I like to go into each of these nodes, each of these texture nodes, kind of see what I'm working with here. So it looks like I'm in this, yeah, it's the front view. So let's get the texture density correct. I want to maybe do it at 6. Just the rotation here. We're going to try and use numerical inputs for all of this, by the way. Maybe increase this a little bit more. We'll maybe do 10 by 10. Okay. And it's really useful for you to remember, like, what view you're in. Okay, so there's that. All right, now let's just go through the shader and align all of our views. All right, come into the mix node here, and he's been nice enough to label this, so let's jump over to the top view here. I believe we set this to 12. And we'll just look at it from the top view. Now again, obviously we probably don't want this rock for the top view, so let's get something a little different here. We'll just grab something so you can see like the total tonal difference. Okay, and now let's grab the, what view is this? The right view. We'll set that to 12 and 12. We'll turn this on. I'm just going to jump on over to the right side here. Okay, that looks good. And let's do a quick little preview of this guy. Okay, so let's actually get you guys something a little better so you can see what the hell's going on. Like, so it worked. I can't see anything, Dave. It's just a blurry mess. We'll sign the renderer here. Make sure I have the V-Ray server on. Thank you. Can't auto turn on, but you can definitely tell me when you're on. You know, I'll take it. It's fine. We'll come under here, rendering setup. And we're going to do 70 millimeter. I don't know. There we go. Some nice wide angle. And let's just get an angle that we know is going to be weird. It's like so through here. Okay, now this isn't a solve all. There's going to be a little bit of bleeding. Some areas will be a little soft. But you can see here that because of that triplanar texture projection, it's almost seamless. Like, I mean, you really, like, it looks flippin' awesome, right? So this is really, really powerful. And again, huge shout out to Neil for doing this stuff, because this is something, I mean, it's existed in like Crysis and video game engines for a while. Let me pull up the Unreal. Where is it? Sorry. Here's a thread on the Unreal website that talks. The guy actually went through and made something similar to it, to the triplanar. Well, it is triplanar material, but similar to the method that that Neil's using as well. So let me pull that up just one more time so you guys can see the. It's right there. And who's the user? I don't know who Electric Sauce is, but it's the guy who showed how to do it in Unreal. Crytek also uses this pretty heavily. Unity, there's also users in Unity that do the same thing. So it's really useful and it's really powerful. Let me just show you guys the top view, by the way, of this so you can actually see the difference here on the top. You can see the little rock texture. Now, we don't have any lighting on this, right? So everything's kind of washed out. But this is really useful. And it's useful for a number of reasons, right? Because if we take what we've done and what we've applied earlier with the idea of taking out our color maps, we can actually generate some really nice things. So let's actually do that real quick. Let's go through and let's get a colorizer out here. Let's get some type of landscape going here. I don't know if I want that. Let's pull this down just a little bit. Maybe somewhere like that. And we'll pipe that into, get another output here. Put that right there. And we'll do this as a color. Okay. And I'll write that to disk. That's fine, let it build. Alright, come back into here. Again, we'll adjust these maps as we go along, but let's go into our V-Ray material. Now, we can actually, depending on how far you want to take this, you can actually literally make different shaders for different rocks. Now, again, this is gonna, you're gonna deal with performance stuff, but you can do quite a bit with this. So let's look for V-Ray. Where is it? Is it blend material? Keep that. Okay, and we again can make all of the materials through here using our coat materials. Like we can build a separate rock. We can build, and you'd blend them by your actual height maps. But for what we're going to do here, we'll keep it a little bit more simple. We're just going to utilize the node that Neil Shader created. We'll come back into here, grab a standard V-Ray material, come back down here, gonna come back and grab our old composite node friend, and we're gonna paste that in there. And we paste it as an instance if we want. That way what we do out here will affect it inside the shader as well. It can be handy, especially if your stuff is getting pretty heavy or you have a lot you need to deal with. We're going to come back into the bitmap, and we're going to say color A. Okay, now pay attention. Color A is using map channel 1. All of these other maps are going 2, 3, and 4 for their map channels, okay? So if I suddenly take this and drop this on here, since that's the first node, that's what's going to be utilized. Oh, and it also doesn't help that I have that on top of it. So let's turn that off. Wait a minute. Let me look at this. Make sure I exported this correctly. I guess at the very least I could just go your channel 4. Make sure that's fine. Yeah, that's good. I don't think this is used for anything. Doesn't look like it is, but I might be wrong. Oh, it is used, sorry. Definitely used. Yeah, I'm like, wait a minute, that doesn't look right. Okay. And we'll just go back in and target all the way back down here. We'll target UV map 1. And yeah, that'll be straight down. And let's just see what this looks like too as we drop them on here. Okay, that looks good. Okay. Just need to be realigned. And we'll set this up to, let's just see what a straight overlay is going to do for us. Okay, so again, we're overlaying the color on top of the rock, right? Pretty straightforward. Now, obviously you'd want to use like the correct grass textures and whatnot, but let's play around with this a little bit more. Let's come back in here. We'll reduce that. Let's go into our node. And let's look at the first rock set that we have here. We have this arid rock, so let's get rid of that because that's not really going to be the best probably for what we want. I'm going to go to CG textures here and see if I can find something useful. Alright, we'll probably see what this cliff here looks like. We'll just fire that guy off real fast. Again, remember I reduced the color down by 50%, so maybe not a good idea. Yeah, it blends kind of right into the top, dude. So let's change that top node. I believe it's you. Top texture. Let's just give this a snowy texture here. It's going to have the same UV tiling here, but we can at least see it a little clearer. Now, if you want to adjust like how intense the blend is, the transitional blend is between these, you can do that as well. Let me show you where that's done at. That's done down under here because again, it's being blended by a fall off node, right? So we can play in fall off land here a little bit. We should get, yeah, so just shrank this so it should be a little tighter. Or we can go wider, which probably want to so we can see more of it. So maybe go. And I'll smooth this out. There we go. Just a little bit more deliberate. And maybe we can trying to give me it. There we go. I'll just move this sucker. So again, I'm just trying to get that profile to come across. Alright. We just need to tighten it up just so we can get this to... It'd be nice if I could actually visually see this, but for whatever reason you can't actually visualize the fall off node in the viewport. Kind of sucks. Okay, so it'll tighten that down. And let's go up the node. I wonder if I can save this curve out. Oop. Actually, I'll just do this. Paste that in there. Again, so we can get a little bit more of that snow effect coming in. But again, if you don't want that, you don't have to do that. And if you want to go back, come back into top mix here. If you're like, I don't really like what I've done there, we can actually go through and nuke all of them and it'll reset the curve. Right? Same thing here. If we wanted to do that, we could reset the curve. Yeah, it should be okay. We'll leave that there. Okay. And let me, just so we can actually see this a little bit better here, I'm just going to turn, actually we'll leave this at 100. I'm going to just turn that off though, so we don't see it, so we can just see the node itself. Got a lot more of that snow coming through than what I thought. And let's just switch that around. See? Yeah, it's actually doing the wrong thing. That's putting the snow in the wrong direction. Oh, and it looks like the texture's actually flipped up for whatever that rock is. Let's look at you. Yeah, it's flipped. And let's do 180. There we go. That'll help with that. And literally, we just need to, I guess, play around with this just a little bit more. Takes a little bit of tweaking, but once you get it, like, and you're happy with it, you don't have to, you can just propagate the curve over. Yeah, there we go. You can see it growing at the top there. I don't know if you saw that node, but you can see it like building up on the slopes and stuff, right? Which is, this is actually really useful for what we would want. So let's go in there and grab and get rid of this arid node. There's arid texture, I should say. And we can use it. Honestly, like a lot of times the rocks and stuff tend to look really good when they're contrasted against something. So the white against the dark stone, right, tends to look pretty good. And we don't have any lighting yet baked into this. The front, I changed that. This should be UV map 4. That's why I'm getting stretching, I think. Let's see if this takes care of it. Yeah, it helped it. And the other thing too is I might be going against the grain in one of these textures. So let's look at this as well. So that's what it looks like there. Oh, that's why. Where is map 4? There it is. Yeah, this is map 4. And it's using this guy, which is a little weird. Just have them all use the same map. That way it doesn't look too strange. Because you can see like the different stones and stuff splotching through. Okay. And come back up in here. And if we put this all the way to the top, this is what I was talking about with the snow. I'll come back into the mix node. Oop. Top right. Blended. Yeah. Now, see here. As I pull this guy over, it should start to grow. Oop, I added another one. Don't add a new one, just move it. Have an extra run. Yeah, I did. Sure, that's set to corner. Same with that, okay. It'll push it more down. I'll give us a little softer. I'll give us obviously a much tighter way of doing it. You can obviously run maps through this as well, through that tiling node. Alright, the next thing that you'd probably want to go through and do, because we have a height map driving this underlying layer. And actually, I'm going to see if I can get out of World Machine here a little cooler of a color than just the this little standard like Brock thing. Let's try and do like a let's change this to a little darker of a color. Something that's a little cooler. And we'll just write that bitmap out right over it. Yay, and we should see, if it was targeting the same thing, we should see that node. There it goes. And we'll turn that eye back on. I don't want this thing to be as extreme as it is. I want this to kind of just be like 15% on. And then again, remember to add that UV map back in for the correct projection of it. Alright, push that just a little bit more. Now the next thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to go look at our splat maps. Now again, the splat maps are going to be really useful for doing the drainage. You can see a little bit of color and stuff adds quite a bit actually into this. Let's go in and grab those real quick. We'll hop into Photoshop land. Unfortunately, Max doesn't have a great way of splitting out the channels. And through the grace of epic video editing, everything's already been imported here. Come over here, look at our channels here. These are essentially our selection sets, right? We have all of our flow maps and our height maps. Looking back at our kind of render here, the things that kind of catch my eye, primarily the flow stuff is really cool. Like the actual flow and channel map stuff is pretty neat. It's driven, again, we have our Neil Blevins triplanar texture thing catching the left, right, and top sides of stuff. On top of that, we kind of have this straight down noisy texture that is being driven by this guy, which I split out. And we'll just open him back up with Photoshop. Oh yeah, open up in Windows Media Player Classic. That's what I want. I'll come back down here and grab red. Okay, and again, you can see correspondingly the flow lines are going to match up roughly in here. I think we're pretty close to where that is. That's pretty rad. Anyway, there's some things though that I'm not necessarily thrilled with, and I've obviously been playing with some stuff ahead of time. But we're going to take this RGB mask. I'm going to take this blue channel, come back into the red guy here, and I'll do this a lot. Like I'll just start playing with some of this stuff. And what I like, what I like about this is that we got some nice flow lines, but what I don't like about it is that they're absolutely everywhere, and that kind of is weird. Now, again, like I said, if you guys have the quad spinner plugins, you can do a lot of really cool breakups with a lot of this stuff, but since some of you guys don't, I don't really want to spend a bunch of time covering something that some of you guys probably don't necessarily own, unless you're doing like a bunch of map paintings and stuff. You probably don't own the plugin. I recommend it. It's by Quad Spinner, and they do a bunch of good stuff, but they're not on the cheap end. They're about $300, $400 or $300 for the plugin. But what I can do with this is I can start to cut out portions of this map. And again, I don't have necessarily a set pattern in mind here. I'm really just kind of playing with stuff. I'm like, what looks cool, what doesn't look cool, and we can disable and re-enable the passes just to see if this thing's even doing what I think it should be doing. I'm going to drop a black layer underneath this again so we can break it, see the breakup. Maybe, yeah, I guess black should be okay. And let's go through and look at the other channels as well, because these things are, again, could be pretty useful. Also, the height map is also a really useful thing to play around with, because we can modulate by that. Take that, put that into here. And really, what we can do is we can kind of have that intensity build based primarily off the height map. Right, so we still have the nice flows, but it cuts out a lot of the stuff at the lower areas. Again, it depends on what you're looking for, right? You probably are also maybe, or not probably, but you're more than likely probably going to go in and hand paint some stuff on top of this as well. Like this, of course, being the crest and the peak, we probably want there to be a bunch of snow up here. Yeah. So again, where there's going to be white, there's going to be snow. So let me just get the Wacom pen here. Just kind of paint that in. The other thing too that would be kind of useful at this point to have would be to have some kind of AO map. Now we haven't generated an AO map yet, so the easiest way I think to go in and do that is going to be to kind of fake it. What I want to do is I'm going to generate out a normal map here, and we're going to pull that out of the very end of this thing. So we're right around here, right on this last sharpen node. We'll grab that as under a converter here. We'll take this and we'll say, hey, give me you. And I'm going to set this out as bitmap output, of course. And that should be okay, but we want to call this a normal map. This is kind of the 50-cent solution, right? The cheap little way of doing it. This is going to have to build everything, so I'll pause it because I closed it down to save some memory. Alright, so we built all of that. I'm going to come back into Photoshop. Pull up the normal map here. Alright, and see, that's a very nice looking normal map. Yay, we're all very excited about that. Fired up Quixel, the dedo. Sweet. So, or undo. Let me Control D that. Let that pop over. Come under here, under, not preset, sorry. I want to convert this. Under map converter. I want to make an AO map. And again, this is, you know, it's not as good as doing a ray trace, but it should be okay. Either way, we're going to use it. Okay, so a little bit of color information in here, which is super great. Or not. So what we'll do here is I'm going to copy this guy. And we're going to come back into, I believe it's Mr. Red. And again, I down-res this guy so I could render a little faster, just for the sake of the tutorial. But that's all right for right now. And I'm going to run a levels on this and just try and get this to darken some of these areas a little bit. Oh, Quixel. Let me close down World Machine yet again, because World Machine will eat your memory if you're not careful with it. You can already see like it was lagging pretty bad there. That's because of World Machine, so just be mindful of that. And let's first see what the mult's going to look like on top of that. That's going to give us, it's going to probably push a little bit more of the stringiness around, but it's going to give me some nice effects. So let's see if I can use these layer blend styles here to pull out some of that from underneath. Because I do like some of that surface breakup at the top there. That's kind of cool. Maybe we'll drive it underneath. Mask it off in some spots just again. And again, this is a little deceiving looking at it from this angle, because you're like, oh, it's probably not that bad. This is covering a ton of stuff. So when we put this on the terrain, and I'm going to save this out as a PSD, that way I don't destroy anything. It'll cut it quite a bit out. Okay. Collapse you down. And we'll just instance that guy. Again, so the displacement and stuff will match. And I'll just throw that one right back at it. And we'll see what it looks like. Okay, so we're getting closer. You know, not necessarily thrill. I'd like a little bit more kind of throughout the base. So let's see if we can simulate a little bit of that. Probably the best way to do that is going to be to grab. I always set the Wacom pen down and I can never find it again. It's going to be to get kind of a bigger brush here. Just kind of get some of this info down here. just in some spots, and we can trail it off. Something a little bit down here, just so it's not so uniform. And then we'll throw that back on there. That might be a little much. We'll just take this down about 50%, 30% or so, and paint some of that back out just so we can adjust the transitions. All right. Again, it might look a little splotchy, but if you're concerned about the harshness, which I'm actually not too concerned about, maybe a little bit. Well, let's actually just blur it in the shader instead of blurring it inside of Max or inside of Photoshop. We'll just blur it inside of Max. We can do that right under here. Yeah, I don't even know what the hell that means. Thank you. By maybe saying that's 2. Okay, you see it blurred it just a little bit. And apparently my painting skills suck ass. So just delete that. Delete that. Delete that. And alright, just try and modulate it. Just a little bit. That seems like it'll probably do a little better. Yeah. No. Give me that. Yeah, that way I'm still getting that stringy stuff, but it's not my weird hand paintingness. I mean, there are some guys, some that can paint this stuff like crazy. There's some matte painters. Actually, they do really good World Machine tutorials as well. They're a bunch of Blizz dudes. I'll pull up some of their stuff in a few, but they do some really good stuff as well. And Anthony's one of their main matte painting guys. The guy can paint like nobody's business, and he uses a lot of 3D as well, which is pretty rad. Alright, so we'll let that render off. Okay, so that's pretty cool. The next thing that we're going to do, and again, we're going to go back into World Machine to do this. I wanted to show you guys this, and this is probably a good chance to do it because we can use it in conjunction with Neil's stuff, is we can come into here. Okay, so remember these selectors, this in particularly select angle guy? I don't know if you guys remember it. He's a cool little dude. We're going to use him. Okay, and what I'm looking to do here is I want to get kind of this area of the mountain. Okay, and I'm thinking that that's probably about right. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this as a mask to target one of the older textures that we used in Neil's script. I'm going to put a different texture in there so we can get a different breakup in the rock face. Okay, because right now, if we look at it, I mean, this doesn't look bad, but it's kind of this, we got a lot of this variations, a lot of the stringy stuff, and we got the same rock pattern everywhere. And what we can do is, I think it's just coming in from the right. Let's find out really quick. Top right blend. And just for shits and giggles, we'll use this so we can see this. I'll just fire this guy off real quick so you hopefully can see. And I'll see if I'm heading in the right direction with this too. Sweet. So this is using Neil's thing, and again, it's projecting everything from the right, and we haven't really clamped anything either on this, I don't think. Let me check. Yeah. So we did do a little bit of clamping. We can maybe even clamp a little bit more. Actually, might be because of this blend right here isn't really clamped. Let me just take this guy. I wish I could just save that damn curve. I'm sure there's a way to. I just don't know. Move that. Put that about there. Put that about there. And put that about there. And you can see it up here, right? Like the blend that's occurring, right? And again, the tighter that this gets is probably the more realistic it's going to be. And again, you can run breakup maps through this as well. You don't have to just use these fall-off curves. So that's actually a little better. We actually probably wouldn't even need to actually render out one of those selector masks, at least for this. We would if we wanted to actually have a purely defined channel, because we could then define it by this. But I actually don't think I'm going to do that. I think I'm just going to use this because it's giving me pretty much what I want. So scratch the idea of adding another map into this thing. We'll render that off and see where it comes. Okay, so I just went through and I re-rendered it out, but I changed the map so it's a little darker, kind of contrastier map. Now let's go back into Photoshop. I know you guys are like, Jesus, man, just finish this damn thing. All this stuff does add up, and it does make it worth it, though. So just bear with it for just a little bit longer. I don't think you guys will be too disappointed with the end result. At least for this, you might be disappointed with everything else, but it is what it is. No, I'm just kidding. So I'm going to save this out as our AO. And again, this AO map, truth be told, isn't that great. Like, I would probably say, hey, go in and actually rip a correct height map, or a correct normal map using X normal, probably, or, you know, whatever. Just get a correct looking AO map. This thing's kind of dodgy. I'll probably actually have to layer in the height field or something onto it just to try and give it a little bit more realistic look. Yeah, let's do that real quick as well. And we'll also be using oh yeah, duh. Oh, normal. We'll also use that normal map to create those edge wear effects again. Hopefully you guys remember that just a little bit, because they're powerful. Maybe just an overlay. Oh god, this thing looks terrible. And let's just run a solid color of white over that, and I'll use this to kind of dial it. I don't even know. So we'll come back into here. Again, I am in the habit, I would rather have a million PSDs of stuff that I can go back and change. And if that looks like it might be a little too bright. I don't know, come on. Good enough. I'll just keep this. This is a shitty AO map. We'll just say that. Yeah. Okay, and let's go grab that normal again so we can remember to do the edge thing that Jacob, my coworker, showed. Alright, we're going to come into here, filter, blur. It's actually going to be stylize right here. Emboss. I don't know why that's at that weird angle. Again, want to go small on this, okay? Don't go too big. It'll look like crap. I'm going to go green. Go boop. Filter, stylize, emboss. And we're going to do that at -90. And we'll say, hey, overlay. Okay. I think that's right. That looks right. Yeah, it looks okay. So we need to adjust the intensity just a little bit. We can do that because we're really using this just we'll call this just edge. And same thing in Photoshop. Another layer, since it's gray, the overlay is just going to put the white on. Open you up. And again, you can see how laggy it's starting to get. This is getting pretty heavy, so keep that in mind as well. Like, this stuff, there is a cost for all of this. And we'll set the AO down to about 30, maybe 45, 50. We'll see what this looks like. And just for the hell of it, let's come back under here, under bump. And V-Ray normal map. Bitmap. Normal map. Okay. And we'll leave that at 30 for right now. Okay, so here's actually the shot you guys probably remember. I just a couple caveats. I flipped the texture, that rock that we added in. It was upside down. There was shadow information in there. That's how I knew that. I changed the AO to actually be a mult. I had it set to normal for some reason, like a jackass. But anyway, I wanted to show you guys this too, because this is important. Like, doing this work and kind of spending the time making sure it works, it allows you to have an asset that you can use in a bunch of different ways. It's the same asset, I just spun the camera around it, right? So again, really useful, really powerful. I'm going to close down World Machine because my computer's chugging. But it can be really, really useful. So just to recap, we went through, we used Neil Blevin's box. I'm not going to do the name any justice. We used his blended box map projection technique. We messed with the levels a little bit. We took some of the overlays and different channel passes that we got out of World Machine and stuck it on top of everything. But this method allows us to actually get orthographically correct projections instead of just flow-based, like a flow-based top-down workflow. So I'm going to stop this guy, the video. Also going to render this out. I'm going to have this as kind of a bonus section just to show you guys the process I go through of rendering one of these scenes out, and I'd like to actually have an image to show you guys for advertising this stuff, so might as well show you guys how I make that as well. So I'm going to do that next. Okay, so this is the composite render here, and I'm not going to go through I've done enough to show you guys in terms of just general tutorials like the whole compositing. Not like enough that I've showed you guys so much you don't need any help, but just I don't want to spend too much time on it in terms of this tutorial. But I did want to show you guys some things. So again, this is looking at Neil's method in combination with what we did, where we used the flow maps and whatnot. And I just want to show you guys. Actually, let me see if I can get an uncompressed. Where are you? Oh, here it is. So this is the actual ortho projection of the texture. And you can see a little bit of the flow maps and stuff working in there, obviously in conjunction with our object space normal, or not our object space, but our edge enhancement and our actual flow map. So again, it's really, really useful, and it can be super powerful when it's all said and done. And then I want to show you guys as well. I rendered out 2 different passes here. Move this over here. So this one is just a quick little turntable, just so I can see the lighting interaction with the shader. You know, some things I probably would do a little differently. Probably boost some reflectivity up in the snow. Probably would have displaced the snow a little bit more. Primarily it's in the snow. I also went through, and I do these once in a while. They can be a little expensive to do, so I don't do them all the time. But they're really useful when you're trying to evaluate silhouettes. And basically what this is there's no fill light, or it's all direct, and it's only just a couple frames. And really what I'm looking for is to make sure that the forms read really well, and it looks like they do. I mean, at least for this. Now again, on my final render, I did this off screen, but I did do a little bit of touch up inside of ZBrush. Let me show you guys that as well. Come back. Turn that curve layer off. There we go. Looks a little better. Just open up the ZBrush model here. And again, I did, we'll talk just briefly about this. I'm not going to obviously walk you guys through the whole process of me sitting here sculpting all this stuff, just because we're going to go into the texturing next if you guys decide to buy the entire package of this or whatever. So really basic sculpting. I just kind of went in and enhanced some of the existing details. Smoothed some areas out. I probably should have cut down a lot of this purlin, which I probably would go back and do. And I based that off of really just more of kind of general preference. Now, one of the things that you can see here, the difference, you can see the actual map that we made in World Machine, this color map, the back here. I can remember what it was called. Do I have my thumbnail thing installed? I do. Where is our color map? Let these all populate. And I have a plug-in here that'll display like the Targos and whatnot. Oh, this guy. So this is this blue tint that we see, and it's been color corrected out, but you can see it in this render. This blue tint that we see here is coming from the overlay inside of oops, wrong guy. It's this guy. It's coming from this overlay. Now, I believe I had it a little higher. I probably had it around 50, 60%, maybe even higher for this render. And it totally works. It totally works pretty well. So again, you can see like all of the layering of all of these assets back to back to back to back kind of help quite a bit. Now, again, with the sculpting, this is everything that's just a straight ortho projection. The next section, we're going to talk about really kind of what to do with more slope and projection stuff. And we're going to use World Machine to kind of create some bases, but outside of that, it's going to be more about hand-sculpted detail and projection of tiling maps. And I decided to loop this in with this topic just because they're very closely linked. And World Machine isn't a catch-all, right? So, but again, I'll let you guys see this. And this is good to do. I'll show you the Max scene as well. Super simple setup for you Max and V-Ray users out there. I have skylight, very low fill, and all I have is a target V-Ray plane with a light target on it, set at 25. I'm not even using the V-Ray camera on this. There's no GI or anything rendered out for this. So, all right. Well, we'll move right on into something.